Alright, moving on from the boots, guys, let's go ahead and we will start to address the gloves now. Now, the gloves, I've actually gone ahead and I've followed the concept art to quite a degree that actually I've been kind of following an outdated type of artwork. But I think, actually, I don't know, it's a bit strange. I'm having some mixed feelings about this kind of, well, I'll circle it for you, this particular style of glove here where it kind of fans out at the end, particularly now that I've seen it reflected here quite effectively in ZBrush. I kind of like how it's uniformed and not kind of flapping out, because I feel like if it's flapped out it's a little bit kind of messy and unkempt, and I feel like we've already kind of got that solid idea down in the boots already. I'm not so convinced anymore that we need it up where the gloves are, necessarily speaking. So I'm going to make an executive decision, and this is kind of the back and forth here, to go ahead and just model the gloves as they are like this now, because, you know, it might look a little bit bland in terms of just seeing it represented in a 2D sketch, but when it's part of a bigger ensemble like this, I think it actually works a little bit better in the long run. Plus, to mention that there's no detail on the gloves here, there's no detail on the folds, and you know, the lace and everything, and the laces there are quite unremarkable. So I'm gonna say it's just a bad sketch. It's not really a bad design. Okay, so what can we do to actually start getting this glove a little bit more, well, representative of the glove I'm thinking of? If I pull up my references now, we'll move over to this side. We've got the gloves over here, and now we're not going to work on sculpting in the detailed folds just yet. We're not at that stage yet. That's not what I want to accomplish, but I essentially just want to get the basic folds in. So we'll be looking at this and looking at how to make the fingers look like these kind of flat sausages instead, which we kind of already did a little bit, but we do need to work on emphasizing that a little bit more, and we can put some kind of these kind of forms in, essentially. Okay, and then obviously we'll look at, we've got like a little trench there dug out for where the laces are going to go and what have you. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll jump in and just kind of update the gloves a little bit. So okay, let's go ahead and make sure we're in the right subtool. We'll start with the hand first, so let's frame in on that. Okay, so you can see we're somewhat there. Let's solo that out. We're somewhat there, but we do need a little bit more attention to just how kind of uniformed those fingers can look. I think I'll leave it there. Okay, and I think the best way to achieve this is to use the damn standard brush, which is there. Okay, so we've used this once already, so it's just a case of coming in and just adding a little bit more to it. So you see, for example, there with the index finger, we want it to be a bit straighter. We don't want it to kind of curve in so much like that following the knuckles. We want them to be relatively kind of uniform, so that's our goal there. Okay, so it can be a bit tricky just to get all that going, but already just a few little strokes there, you can kind of see what I'm getting at. Okay, and you can also smooth it in as well anywhere else that's kind of sticking out in particular, just to kind of solve that. Also, the fingers at the end are actually quite flat, they're not very round, so we do want to again uniform that out as well. Okay, so they want to be, I'd say probably quite, we want to work on the sides a little bit more to increase the how far they go there, and you can see slowly but surely that looks a bit more like the glove that's kind of in the bottom left there. Okay, just by using the damn standard brush and just getting around those shapes, that looks a bit more like a gloved finger now than anything else. And we'll just do another pass down the inside as well, because that's also important. Okay, and of course when we get to this section here, it's going to get quite tight around the knuckles and where they join, but we'll just kind of keep going there. Same thing. We'll do similar thing. Now this seems to be having the inverse effect here just because we're on the inside, which can be annoying, but of course if you have an issue like that, get a good angle on it and mask it off. Okay, so you know you're not affecting that area there. Now you can see that's having the desired effect now. So again, just going around making sure we're turning these fingers more into gloves and less like actual fingers. Don't worry if you start to get a bias leaning towards the top parts of the fingers and the bottoms are kind of just ignoring for now. That's fine, because that's where the kind of stitching is going to be. So we'll prioritize that. That finger's done, so we can mask that off, and we'll do the same for this guy here, the ring finger. I don't know if you can hear it, but when my stylus is kind of on the kind of pad, it seems to squeak a little bit, which is kind of funny. I never expected the stylus to squeak, but I suppose that's the sound plastic makes if you put plastic on plastic, which is a bit funny. But yes, there you go. There are much better stylus things out there. I mean, this is I've got a small Intuos one. It's definitely a budget range. I mean, it does everything I need it to do, but there are some really, really fancy advanced ones out there. Ones even coming with a built-in screen. Now, that's ones I've always wanted, is one of these kind of built-in screen ones, but of course they cost a small fortune. Don't know which ones you guys have at home. You probably have quite a modest one like I do, or some of you out there might have that really coveted one with the built-in screen. I can't imagine what that's like. It probably is leagues better than what this kind of small medium-sized one is, but yeah, Wacom do come up with some good ones, that's for sure. I would like to try the screen one day just to see how different it actually is. Okay, cool. So if you're getting this effect here right now where the lower ends of the fingers there look a little bit flat, just have a look over here and you can see on the glove there they do look kind of flat still, okay, but this is a little bit too pushed in, so we do have to address that a little bit. And you've probably guessed it already, we are going to use the inflate brush just to kind of even that out a little bit more, okay, but we also want to get rid of the kind of knobbliness here, okay, so we do want to kind of keep that. We should probably bring in the trim dynamic brush here just to kind of uniform that a bit more and kind of just go through the chunk of each finger, okay, just kind of flatten that down, the 3 segments there, to keep it rather straight. So instead of it being kind of round like this and somewhat bulbous, we'll kind of come in with the trim dynamic brush and we'll just kind of flatten it down so it's a bit more like that. If I'm a little bit unsure about the strength of the trim dynamic brush, I'll reduce it just a little bit just to be on the safer side, but there we go, okay. And if you lose too much volume, don't worry, we can use the inflate brush and we can get that all back. But the important thing now is to try and get this quite flat so that they don't look like finger segments, they look more like glove segments, okay. So I'll just smooth that out and see what we have. It's a bit better, okay. The tips as well need to be somewhat more uniformed, a little bit around the kind of edges there. So at the moment it's favoring the upper edge, but let's come down here and we'll just favor it around the center more instead, because the stitch is in the center. And you can see here we've got like a little kind of curl up. We don't want that. There we go. Okay, that's in the center, that's in the center. A little bit more there. There we go. A little bit there. Smooth that out. Yeah. I spent all that time creating wonderful fingers only to get rid of them all. Oh, what a shame. But it's fine, it's what we need, so that's perfectly okay. Okay, alright, so another thing I think I might do is just kind of almost strangely reintroduce that again, but I'll just come in with a small inflate brush and I'll just use the inverse of it and just kind of gently paint out an area of those segments there. In fact, I might, instead of using the inflate brush, I might use a big damn standard brush instead, but on low power, just to kind of put those areas back in a little bit, okay, just ever so slightly. They are still there, but the fingers are not kind of round sausages, they're more kind of flat chunks instead. I'm not happy with that middle finger segment there, so inflate it a bit and I'll trim it down, something like that. That's a bit better. Same with that little part there. Not happy with that area. There we go, that looks okay there. Yeah, okay. And we don't want to trim dynamic at the ends because that's kind of where the stitches naturally bow out there. They kind of congregate there, so that's fine. I'll just use the inflate brush and put that back in. Okay, and I'll bring my damn standard brush back. Okay, and don't forget down here as well. Down here will be where the creases are the heaviest. Okay. Okay, so we're starting to get more glove-like features. I'm just not so happy with the index finger. Just might use the inverse a little bit, try and get it a bit more, something like that. There we go. Okay, don't forget about the thumb, of course. The thumb is pretty generic, it's pretty straight edged. There's certainly not a curve like there is here. So I think what we've got to do is, we'll use the standard brush to add a bit more volume on the end. I thought about taking it away with the trim dynamic brush, but make it a bit more round, and now we can trim dynamic that down a bit. And then do the same for the undersides of the thumb, just like we did with the fingers. Okay, smooth that out, and we'll do the tops as well. Okay, yep, and let's just do a quick pass with the damn standard brush. And again, it depends how well fitted the gloves are. If the gloves are like a masterclass, well made to fit type of glove, then you know, you will see the fingers a bit more kind of tightly, a bit easier. But if they're kind of loose work gloves and whatnot, and they're kind of maybe made by an amateur-ish level worker, or let's say a not so skilled level worker, you're going to get quite generic sized fingers. Okay, don't quote me on that, I'm just guessing it because I'm not a masterclass leather worker, nor have I worked in the leather working industry, so I have no idea, but I'm just assuming that's the case. And this little pinky finger, I don't like that, so I'm going to inflate it a bit more. There we go, just in case some of the fingers start to look a little bit too streamlined. So, because we have been trim dynamicing them a lot, so maybe I got a bit carried away with how much I was trim dynamicing earlier. Okay, just a bit there. Okay, let's get the forms correct. Alright, okay, I'm quite happy with that. I'll accept that little part there. There we go. Okay, so I think you agree, when we put the hand back on, apart from these knuckles here that are quite visible, they're starting to look more like gloves. Okay, and you can see the relief on the gloves here, they're very much not stuck up at all. They're pretty flat, so we can kind of go ahead and flatten them down a bit. Okay, and we can actually just go straight across like that almost, and just create that same effect. Because remember, the gloves are just sat over the fingers, and they're not made from anything particularly loose and tight fitting. Well, actually they are tight, but they're not made from anything. They're not made from soft materials, they're made from quite hard materials, so they're not going to be kind of form fitting so much. I'm just going to take the clay build-up brush and just kind of exaggerate the row of knuckles on the top there, so it's a line of knuckles rather than individual bumps, just to kind of get that formation in. Okay, and you probably guessed it, but we'll come back with our trim dynamic brush here, and we'll just trim dynamic some of the rounder parts of the glove away. Okay, something like that. Oops, caught the thumb a bit there. Let's do that over here too. Okay, and then we'll do another pass across the front. Just see where the knuckles are. We can probably use the inflate brush just a little bit. Okay, and once we've done that, we can use a big damn standard brush, and we'll kind of just put in that line there essentially, so we'll kind of encourage almost the strokes using the damn standard brush, like so. And then we can always push them back as well. Okay, so that's starting to look more and more like a glove. I think I will take the trim dynamic, bring its intensity down a little bit, and just take care of some of the top kind of knobbly bits I can see. There we go. I don't want to have any kind of round looking parts to the fingers, because that betrays the fact that it's a glove. There we go. Okay, Right, so that's starting to look a bit more like a glove now. I think what we could do is probably just come with a big inflate brush and just kind of, you know, swell these fingers up a little bit. Maybe just be careful how much you do it, but just a bit more to make them look like gloves. Okay, and just ever so slightly checking around. Yep, okay. And if there's a kind of change in the form a little bit, I think I would just use the move tool a little bit, perhaps push the fingers in a bit, and then maybe go down a subdivision level, maybe push that in ever so slightly, rock that up a bit. There we go. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the Vembrace part here. So what have we got for the Vembrace? We haven't got any particular references. We do have this aspect here. So what we could do actually is let's jump back to the glove a little bit, and we'll just deflate the area around the wrist, just so that it's clear. It's very much tucked into where the Vembrace starts. Okay, so just go once round. Just kind of put the wrist into the Vembrace there. Okay, that's fine. So it looks like it's well socketed in, and then of course conversely, if you feel you need to, you can just do a slight inflation around the edge of the Vembrace too, just to emphasize that kind of slotting in. And we do want it kind of curved around the wrist, so I'm just going to deflate it a little bit. And if I say deflate, I just mean use the inverse of the inflate brush. Okay, so just there along the sides, maybe a little bit up the top as well. We don't want to exaggerate it too much. We still want it to look quite rigid, maybe particularly towards the back there. Okay, that's fine. Alright, and let's just solo that for a second. We'll bump up the number of polys, and we'll kind of clear this sector out a little bit on the inside here. Get that a bit prepped, ready for, well, whatever it is we do to it later when we add the laces. Okay, it's a little bit of a misstep for me. I probably should follow the curvature a bit more. I guess it doesn't have to be entirely straight, just because it's made out of leather it won't be entirely straight, so I guess don't lose too much sleep on that. But I will mask this top edge off here, just so I can really attack underneath there with the damn standard brush and really create that layer difference. I'll do the same on the bottom edge. I'll flip it up, in fact. A bit easier to draw the mask with. There we go. Yes. Maybe just clean that out a bit. Okay. Yes. And then same thing. There we go. Nope, we don't need autosave. Just smooth it out a bit, because naturally the smoothness will try to get rid of the layers you've done. So, but the mask should more or less keep it in place. And if you feel like you want to make it even deeper, you can of course use the inverse function of the clay build-up brush, just to kind of get rid of any of that. Now all this here, don't worry about it, because that's supposed to be hollow, but it's not. It just get kind of tucked under the shirt, and this will kind of get tucked under the wrist, so you don't have to worry about that part too much. Smooth it out, and there we go. We've got a bit more of a better channel, and with the walls somewhat clearly established, we can come in with the trim dynamic brush. Sorry, the damn standard brush again. I'm mixing up the names of my favorite brushes. They would not be happy about that. And just kind of paint it in. Let's flip it around. Just so we've got plenty of room to put the laces in later. Okay. You can see that's kind of eaten in a little bit, so let's just bring the standard brush out, and we'll just increase that slightly, and we'll do the same up there too. Okay. There we go. And I reckon, even though we've got subdivision levels active on this, just to kind of get that valley nice and baked in with our polys there, we should Z-remesh it whilst we've still got the chance. So let's bring the polygons down to about 10k. adapter size 20, and we'll just tell it to Z remesh. Just to kind of get the polys along that valley that we've been sculpting backwards and forwards on. Any minute now. There we go. Okay, and so you can see there we've got a nice somewhat linear, got a nice linear line of polys that we've got there, just to exaggerate that kind of valley. It's even curved around there, which is nice. Okay, right, speaking of that, it's time we put the straps in. That'll be the last little thing we do. We'll duplicate this, although technically we didn't have to because it's only got one subdivision level, but that's fine. We'll use the IMM curve brush again to create some straps. Now again, go with the one that you're familiar with. I'm familiar with wide straps, so I just want to create two. I want to create one almost at the very top and leave it there, and then maybe I'll create one around near the wrist. We'll see. We'll do two because we can always get rid of one should I decide we don't need it, and that's too big. That looks roughly the right size, but let's try a size of 30. See what that does, and I'm going to have to use my trick here. I'm going to have to draw it like that and then curve it round, I reckon. So we'll start it off around here. There we go. Okay, and I think with this, the trick is don't let them meet. Again, otherwise you will have the same problem as we did when we created the straps around the boots. They will just kind of go a little bit ballistic, disappointingly, so we won't let them meet. We'll just kind of let them carry on without touching. A little bit there, nearly touched, but it's okay. Haven't quite touched yet. So how are these going to work? They should probably just tuck into a part on the vembrace here. Okay, so it's actually part of the design. I think that's okay. It's getting a little bit kind of bothered about the channel here, so it's kind of warping a little bit, but let's see. We could, I'd say, let's raise that up a little bit. Okay, let's keep it as that. We'll accept that. Alt click somewhere else, and we'll use our move topological brush just to kind of do any fine tweaking with it there. Actually, let's use our move brush. That's going to be a bit easier for us to select the strap in the mesh. Just be careful about pulling on the other areas there. Okay, and I want to pull this guy out. There we go. It needs to be quite tight across the kind of channel there, so there we go. Let's solo it out. Let's bring this down. And now that he's out of the masked part, we can use move topological so it doesn't affect the other side. And let's just be happy with the curvature on here. That's a bit too curvy. I think that's quite okay. I might just pull him along and then extend him ever so slightly. Something like that. Okay. Fabulous. Now, I'm feeling lazy. I don't know about you. You probably already guessed what's coming, but let's polygroup that. There we go. And we'll get rid of the mask. We will just focus on the strap. We only want the strap there. Geometry, modified topology, delete hidden. Bring that back. We've already got a vembrace there, so we'll just duplicate this guy. And we'll use our move gizmo. You can see it's already put nicely into place. And we'll just put that roughly into place down below here, roughly in the right area. Somewhere around there. And we'll resize them. So we don't have to go through all that again. Okay. And let's now, once it's roughly the right size, we'll just use our move tool and bring it out. Now what that has done, however, is it has made that strap a little bit smaller. I'm not so sure if I'm happy with that. I think I've got a better way of doing it. I'll tell you what, I'll leave the video here for now, and I think I've got a better way to do it in between the next video. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll leave that there for now, and the next one we'll kind of sort this out here. I'll show you another way of doing the same thing essentially.